hope that people out here listening to this podcast will think I'm going to have the next Hello Sunshine, because it is possible.
What was at stake for you if it didn't work?
There was something inside of me that could not let it go. It is a mindset, like you talk about, very much in the spirit of Elle Woods. I'm like, what? Like, it's hard?
This is the Founder Mindset with Reza Satchu.
Every year at Harvard Business School, hundreds of students compete to gain entrance into my class, one of the most popular courses on campus, the Founder Mindset. For those who make the cut, I take them on a journey, challenging them to take risks, make commitments, and most importantly, learn judgment. One of the most popular aspects of the course are the guests we bring in, outstanding entrepreneurs who've had a truly profound impact on the world. Now, I'm sharing my conversations with some of these founders on our show. I'm Reza Satchu, and this is the Founder Mindset.
What does it take to be a founder? From one of Hollywood's biggest stars to one of its most influential founders, Reese Witherspoon built her company Hello Sunshine to change who gets to own stories and who gets to tell them. With a new blueprint for modern storytelling, Hello Sunshine turned projects like Little Fires Everywhere and The Morning Show into global hits, transforming the entire industry.
Reese Witherspoon, welcome. It's terrific to have you here.
Thank you, Reza.
You know what? Let's look back, okay? If you're up to it, what I'd love to do is sort of look back from the beginning of Reese Witherspoon, because I've got a theory that these founder journeys, especially one like yours, is a real hero's journey, but it comes from childhood experiences, and it influences us both in the best possible way and sometimes in the worst possible way. If I think about Reese Witherspoon, what I think about is tremendous warmth and tremendous ambition, okay? Those are two unusual things to have together. Mm-hmm. So where did that come from in your childhood?
Well, I think I went to all-girls high school, so I was always learning about female leadership and seeing it in action, learning about the ways that we weren't succeeding in large numbers in leadership positions in many different parts of the world. So I saw this big problem as a young person. You know, there's not enough women in public office. There's not enough women in leadership roles in big tech. There's not enough women in leadership roles across any business. Right. Women don't own businesses.
Did you at that point in time feel like you might be able to solve this problem?
No.
Okay, so it was just you saw the problem, it upset you.
Yeah, but I just accepted that with status quo. Women were never going to be in positions of power in the entertainment business, in hospital structures where my parents worked. It just wasn't going to happen. Right. I grew up with a really amazing mother who was a nurse on the weekends, and then during the week she taught nursing at the State University. But we had some real financial disasters in my teenage years.
It was volatile.
Yeah. With some spending issues that my dad had, and we went, to some pretty bad places with the family finances. And I was kind of brought in to help a little bit when I was 16 or 17.
So how did that feel?
Well, there wasn't a feeling about it. It just was. So I always had this idea that no one's coming to save me. I didn't have a financial safety net. I didn't have, my parents were loving and kind, but they didn't have the means to send me to college. I knew I was going to have to do it on my own. And if I didn't succeed, there wasn't anybody coming to save me. Right. So when I ended up going to Stanford, about a year in, I realized I couldn't pay the tuition. It was costing, I remember it was $33,000 a year.
I mean, first of all, congratulations getting into Stanford. I mean, that's pretty damn good.
Thanks.
So this decision to drop out, was that a hard decision?
Well, it was an either or. So I had to make this decision. I had friends who were going into student debt and accumulating all this debt at an early age. And then on the other hand, I had movies that would pay me. I think people try to paint my dropout story like I'm some sort of wonderkin that had some great business, but it was literally just
you couldn't pay for it.
I couldn't afford tuition, and I could start a career that I wasn't sure I wanted to be in the movie business. I thought I was going to be a doctor.
How'd your parents feel about you being in the movie business?
They thought it was a terrible idea.
Right.
My mother was like, that's a hobby. That's not a
Well, she just,
career.
the odds were so against you. I mean, it was reasonably rational for
The
her to want you to
likelihood
be a
of
doctor.
someone making
Yeah.
it is,
Ridiculously
less
small.
than 1%.
Yeah.
So I'm a very pragmatic person. I just was solving issue by issue. So at first I just had the tuition issue, and then I started really getting some momentum in my acting career. And then I had to make a decision: was I going to go back to college or just keep on the
Right.
career path? And I stayed with it because it started to kindle and become I started getting really great jobs.
Right. What was it early on, do you think you had that enabled you to be successful so quickly as an actress?
I think I didn't understand that a really great piece of my childhood was my parents were both in the military and they were both in the medical field.
Oh, interesting.
So there was this feeling of you get up and you do the job and you do it in service of other people. So I always thought about myself as a team player and a reliable team player.
So that sounds very different than most people who go into acting.
Yeah, I didn't have this big dream
Right.
of expressing
Right, 'cause
myself, and but I loved storytelling and I loved creating characters, and I was silly. I was like a silly, funny kid.
Right.
I always made everybody laugh. I was also very contrary. If everybody in my class was wearing red, I was wearing black. I liked to stick out, and I also liked to challenge norms.
Yes.
I didn't like systems. And as soon as I discovered where I sat in a system, I was annoyed and irritated with myself. And I would break out of that system, whether that was a friend group or even at college at
Right.
Stanford. I started the film society. There was nobody making films at
And
Stanford.
I mean, that's very interesting behavior because obviously that is probably highly correlated with some of your actions in the future. But
Totally.
I mean, what was it that was leading to this kind of behavior?
I don't know. I think
Yeah.
it's just my personality. I like to
Right.
be contrary. It's not my favorite part of my personality, but
But it's who
sometimes
you are.
it helps.
Yeah. Where has it helped most?
When I looked at my business, when I was 34 years old, I'd worked inside of my business for 20 years, and I started seeing these systemic problems and getting really bothered by them in a way that never bothered me before. But we went through a really particularly bad period of time, like 2011. The scripts and parts for women were abysmal, really demeaning.
So talk to me about that. Like,
base.
give me examples of what you saw.
Well, the script that kind of started it all was this project that had this man at the center of it, and two women were just vying for his affection, and it was filled with gross jokes and scatological humor and poop jokes and boob jokes. I called my agent and I said, I'm not auditioning for this, and I
You
don't
have
even
no
want
interest.
it. I
Yeah.
have no interest. And she said, every actress in Hollywood wants these two parts. And I thought, that's what we're fighting for?
And that's because there was nothing else.
So you got to remember, there were 7 studios.
Right.
Each studio made about 20 movies a year. And this is what happened. I started going on a listening tour because I had worked at every studio. So I went around to every studio head and I said, how many movies are you developing right now that have a female lead?
Right.
Every single one of them said, we don't have anything. One of them said, we did have it, but we already made one movie with a woman at the center of it, and we can't make 2 this year.
Remarkable.
And first I got mad, and then I was like, wait,
Yeah.
this is a huge white
Opportunity,
space.
Yeah. So why do they? I mean, look, we obviously see this all the time where incumbents miss things, obvious things, but this just seems so ludicrously obvious in some ways. Why did they miss this? Like, what was the inertia that led to this kind of behavior?
It's a whole lot of stuff happened in our business when the DVD market
Right.
stopped, right? That was about a third of the revenue that a lot of the studios were taking in, maybe a third of 40%.
Okay, so pretty dramatic number.
Pretty
Yeah.
dramatic. So they had to really maximize for biggest profit. So they started going into superhero land. I'm sure everybody remembers the
Yeah, it's-
2010s were superhero time. That did not include stories about women. Stories that center women are usually romantic comedies, family dramas, a thriller, but they're usually in the $30 to $40 million price range, sometimes up to 60. Well, that's immediately what they cut off of their development slate. And I thought, okay, well, what if I come in with independent financing and provide them solutions and develop it myself with known IP and vetted filmmakers and just present the package?
Yeah, it's remarkable. So,
I'm solving an
Yeah.
issue, but that it wasn't. They didn't care because it wasn't their problem to solve.
yes. Well, they were quite happy with the way things were going in some
I
senses.
think they just, they had to keep up with corporate
Yeah.
mandates.
Well, Reese, I say this all the time, which is that every founder that goes out and creates a business runs into this obstacle. I'll call it the refusal of the call, which is everyone else says, there are others who have more resources than you do that could do this. Okay, there are others that are there that have more information, more resources. In your case, you're doing just fine as an actress. There's lots of other people who missed this and didn't do it. So why is it your job to do this? Okay, and so my question is, what was it about this? Because it's hard what you had to do, and we'll talk about some of the difficult times. But creating Hello Sunshine was a really difficult and risky thing for you to do.
Well, I think every founder will agree with this. There was something inside of me that could not let it go.
Yeah.
It nagged at me. It kept me up at night. I would talk about it every dinner party. I bored my mother with it. Every one of my friends, every one of my colleagues was like, can you believe this? Can you believe this? And I realized I was admiring a problem, but I wasn't providing a solution.
Right, right.
And it's not enough to just admire.
And at what point did you realize that you were the person to solve that problem? Because that's a big difference, right? To go from admiring it to
Yes.
saying, you know what, I'm the one to solve it. And it wasn't exactly a small problem.
No, it was a massive
Can
problem.
you define that? How would you define the problem?
Well, I thought even if I could just chip away at it
Yeah.
just incrementally,
Right.
even if I just make one movie a year, maybe I'll scale to 2. Maybe then I can get to a TV show plus 2 movies.
Right.
I'm at least I'm part of the solution.
Yes. Yeah.
And then when I started getting real traction, I did the first books I optioned were Wild and Gone Girl, which both went to #1 on the New York Times bestseller list, nonfiction, fiction. And so then I turned
This was at Pacific Standard. This was at
Pacific Standard,
Pacific
yeah.
Standard, right?
And we turned them into movies, me and my producing partner, Bruna. And that we got 3 Oscar nominations and over $600 million in the box office. And then we did Big Little Lies with Nicole Kidman. We co-produced it.
And first of all, what a run. I mean,
It
those
was
were
such a
3
good run.
incredible run. Yeah.
And it really cemented the idea that we had great taste in books.
Yes.
We were the book people.
Yeah.
But that said, I was only working for producer fees. I had 4 employees, and I was only breaking even. I couldn't.
So
I
with
realized-
that sort of a track record,
Yeah.
you can barely pay your employees.
I could barely pay my employees what I considered a good wage plus benefits.
Right, right.
And the overhead of the space. The overhead was eating me alive, and I was just break even. And I was like, that's not a real business.
Right. So it strikes me you had 2 things going on. One is you had sort of at the highest level this deep desire to have impact, right? To actually make the world a better place by creating more sensible roles for women, okay? But at the same time, you saw this economic opportunity too.
I didn't care about the money first. The purpose was more important to me than the money. So artists historically in the movie system don't own anything.
Right.
They give it to studios, and studios own it, and they sell it again and again. And each window they make money, right?
So artists basically make money sort of on a transactional basis. But
And there's a few artists that make
yeah.
a tiny.
Right. But there are very few
of
that have transitioned to a place where they're actually getting long-term equity value.
Correct. Right.
But you're thinking, I'm working in an industry where I'm creating a lot of value
Right.
and getting a very small share of it.
Yeah, I can't keep the lights on and
yeah.
4 employees. There's something wrong.
In many ways, the status quo for you was pretty good.
Yeah.
Meaning for most people who weren't as driven by purpose as you are would have said, you know what, this is pretty good. And frankly, all the other actors or actresses that were making this kind of money were like, I'll just keep going. I won't challenge the system. Tell me what was at stake for you if it didn't work?
Can I be really honest? It was my daughter.
Yeah.
I saw a world where my daughter was watching television shows that really made women look terrible,
Yeah, right.
overly sexualized, or desperate for a man's attention, or competition shows that really value how you look instead of the content of your character. And I realized if I felt like that
Right.
as a mom
Yeah.
of a 13-year-old girl, I'm sure lots of people feel that way. I mean, you have 2 daughters.
Yes, I do. Yeah.
This kind of stuff that you see is not the kind of women you want them to be.
Right.
So if I wasn't creating aspirational content, who was going to do it? And like, why not me?
Yeah.
I had the support and I had the goodwill.
It's a beautiful thing.
It was. And I had self-funded for a long time. I was getting tired of self-funding because I was exhausted. I was like, oh my God. So I went and pitched investors, and I got 2 investors. And that's all I ever got before we sold.
You know, when I'm sort of still thinking about your comment, and what's so beautiful about it is that in your daughter, you saw your ability to have the impact that you wanted to have, right? Meaning you saw that if you could impact your daughter, clearly this would lead to much broader impact.
Media is so important.
Yeah.
What the movies I grew up watching and the women I grew up watching had values. They had integrity. They had work ethic. When people knocked them down, they got back up. I'm thinking Goldie Hawn and Private Benjamin, or Holly Hunter and Broadcast News, or Sigourney Weaver and Aliens. Women had agency and integrity. And I wasn't seeing that. And I thought, if I'm one of the most hired actresses in Hollywood and I'm not addressing this issue, come on.
Right.
Come on.
Right.
And a lot of people are, I don't mean to say this to diminish my colleagues, they are working on it. I just thought, I was an early adopter of social media, and I saw the opportunity to storytell on those platforms as well.
Right. So if someone said to you, I feel like, and this is going to be hard for you because I don't think you like answering questions like this, but I feel like every founder has a superpower, okay? There's something about them that feels special, okay? Now, there are lots of things that are potentially not special, but if I asked you what your founder's superpower is, because you had to effectively sell a new vision of what the world looks like, and others had to buy into that vision. You mentioned investors, but also your employees had to leave high-paying jobs and come and buy into your vision. And so what was the Reese Witherspoon founder superpower?
I mean, I want to be thoughtful about it. I think it's 2 things. I have extreme empathy. So I think about how the work will affect the world, right? I've had women come up to me, and I know I'm sitting at Harvard, and this isn't necessarily about Harvard, but Legally Blonde had such a tremendous impact on young people. I
am sure the Harvard application team is sick of hearing about Legally Blonde, to give you a sense of the impact.
They need to get over it.
Yes, exactly.
Because I've had hundreds of women from different countries.
Yeah.
I'm talking about women from China, Africa, India, all parts of Europe, not to mention America, every state of America, come up to me and say, I applied to law school because of Elle Woods. And when you think about how important movies are to people, they're formative. They're formative to young men too. It matters how we watch. Art is the way we process the human condition. War, famine, love, divorce, breakups, having a new baby, everything we can imagine a movie where we've seen something like that happen. So it's an extremely powerful medium. And I will say another superpower that I have is ambition.
Right.
I'm very much in the spirit of Elle Woods. I'm like, what? Like, it's hard. I'm not afraid of hard work. I'll work harder than anybody. I'll stay up later, and I'll wake up earlier, and I'll do more work and more homework because I care.
Yeah.
I just care.
So to you, there's a tremendously high correlation between effort and result.
Yes. Yes, and it doesn't mean you're always going to have a great result, but you'll never be able to say you didn't try really hard. So if I give everything 100%, and I have to fight my perfectionist tendencies because I want to show up perfect all the time.
And so let's talk a little bit about, because if you have ambition, what that means is you're comfortable with failure. Because invariably, ambition, you're trying things that are hard.
Yeah.
Right? And so by definition, there will be things that you fail at.
Yeah, I love it.
Okay.
I love failing.
So tell me, okay, this is remarkable because most people are so scared of failure.
Well,
right?
It sucks.
Yeah. So why do you want to be in an arena where you could fail?
First of all, you're probably in an arena with somebody who's better than you, so you're in the right arena.
Yes,
I
yes,
love
correct.
that.
That's good.
Okay.
There's good learning there.
So now I'm challenging myself to be better than or just as good as. And I love showing up against a worthy opponent. And, a movie that did better than my movie, I want to know why. Right. And then I get this great piece of analysis. I never go, ugh, poor. I don't have a poor me face. I go, why? Let's talk about it. Oh, wait, you're totally right. I missed that. Yeah. That was tone deaf. I shouldn't have done that. Right. I should have done that.
So give me an example of a time when you felt incredible discomfort. Like a moment where you sort of push things, way ahead of potentially your capabilities, right? I sort of have this point where you want your confidence to be in excess of your capabilities because in that gap lies your judgment. Now, your confidence can't be too great because that's arrogance, okay? But you have to be able to trust your judgment, and there's a gap there. And so I'm curious, because you strike me as someone who does operate in that gap, right? Where it's not clear what's going to happen. Like you got some volatility, but you're comfortable with it because you know there's opportunity there too.
Okay, I have one.
Yeah, totally.
I thought about it. Okay, early days of Hello Sunshine. We had a different leadership team, and they had this idea that I was going to do an unscripted show with strangers. And so we went and shot 2 episodes of this television show where I went on vacation with strangers. It was awful.
Oh, no, really?
I think the kids would say, cringe.
Yeah, right.
So cringe.
Because you can imagine it could have been pretty good. It depends who you were matched up with. It was bad.
It was so bad. Yeah. And I said, throw it in the can. Throw it in the garbage.
Yeah. So what did you learn from that?
We spent money on it. I was like, I'm sorry. It's terrible. Yeah. And we pivoted to something that was more authentic to me. So instead, I said, I want to do a show where I call 8 women I admire, and I'm going to go to their place of work, and I'm going to interview them, and they're going to show me their world. And so that actually felt like
But it's what's interesting, perhaps that wouldn't have happened hadn't you done the 8 stranger thing first.
Oh, yeah, I had to do that.
Yeah, to actually learn from it and say, this is where I want to go.
As I think about it, I want to hives.
Who were these people?
I don't even know. They were lovely people, but I didn't know what to say to them. They didn't know what to say to me. It was a complete mismatch.
Right.
And then when I found the right format, I was like, this makes sense. Felt like comfortable shoes. I was like, yes, I'm in my element. Asking women about their lives, and I was curious, and they were curious, and I get to shine the light on them. So
I have a question about the brand you've built. Okay. So someone mentioned, and I thought this was a very interesting comment, that when they think of the Reese Witherspoon brand, they think of a movement.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Which is a very interesting, meaning people define brands in different ways. Movement's a very interesting word. And I have an impression of what that means, but I'm very curious what you think that means and whether you'd agree with that and whether that's something you strive for.
I had never heard that before. It made sense to me in terms of a collective group of people moving toward one idea. So I love that.
Yeah. And what idea would you want them moving towards?
This idea that women are 50% of the population, we should be 50% of the stories, and those stories should be reflective of real women's lives. Yes. And I want to see diversity. I want to see complexity. I want to see adversity. I want to see socioeconomic struggle, because that's the real human experience.
Right. So do you think you've moved the ball on that front?
I actually do. I'm enormously proud of what my team has accomplished. I have a best-in-class team. They work so hard. And we also have fun while we do it.
I mean, it's remarkable because when you look at Hello Sunshine, you made a bunch of decisions. The initial decisions founders make ultimately instill the culture through those decisions, right? And so one decision you made was you were very generous with equity around your team. Many founders won't do that because it's just diluting themselves. So what was the rationale for doing that?
I wanted them to feel ownership in the company. I wanted them to feel like it was their company.
Right.
And I wanted them to be rewarded for leaving their comfortable corporate jobs.
Yes.
That in the upside, they would win quite a bit. I think one of my passions is storytelling. My other passion is to help women make more money.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you can't really empower women if you're not making them money.
Right, right. You know, what's interesting about that, and part of what's an amazing part of about Hello Sunshine is, in many ways, not only did you make the women on your team money, but you also created a business that sold for a very large number. And so you've set an example of a female founder that has built something of real significance. And that will inspire many others because it's possible. They see that it's actually possible.
I hope so. I hope that people out here listening to this podcast will think, I'm going to have the next Hello Sunshine.
Yeah.
I really hope they
Yes,
do.
yes.
Because it is possible.
Yeah, it is possible. And so the advice you would give to female founders in particular.
Partnership is really important. Make sure that you understand the gaps in your own knowledge and fill those gaps with people who are better than you.
And did you do that?
Absolutely. My team is filled with people who can do things that I don't even understand.
So give me examples of two or three
just
things
this finance piece is not my core competency. I'm really good at story developing and working with filmmakers, and I'm really good at connecting with creators and creating community. But the back-end production piece is not what I'm good at. And I would also say partnership is really important, and asking questions, not being afraid to say, hey, I don't know what you're talking about. Can you just stop and explain it to me? Because things can go really fast.
See, it's remarkable because even things like that, once you as a leader start doing that, you give permission to everyone else in the firm to do that as well.
Yeah, and then there's much more clarity across the whole organization.
Right. Reese, if I look at you, you've gone from actress, producer, founder, thought leader, brand. I mean, where do you see yourself? I mean, there's so many different ways to see you. Which one resonates most with you personally?
I would say right now, community builder and storyteller.
Right.
I like bridging the gaps for women in terms of, like, I'm watching AI transform every industry before our eyes. So I go to a lot of conferences and I gather a lot of intel, and I really hope that I can help bridge that gap for women, because I do think there's an inherent fear of what's about to happen in terms of job loss and redundancy. But I do think other industries are going to pop up around it, and we have to be ready.
Right. Do you see AI as, I mean, you could argue it's a massive threat. You could also argue potentially there's a massive opportunity. Where are you on this?
I think it's both.
Yeah, right. It is.
It's a threat to existing institutions and the ways that we have done things, but it's also a massive opportunity that's going to emerge, and we just don't know what it is yet, but there'll be entire industries that pop up around it.
Right. So, Reese, so many people watching want to enter into this founder journey, and some are in it. And of course, you and I both know it's a roller coaster.
Oh my God.
It is such a roller
The
coaster.
business that I thought we were starting, Reza, was a
Yes.
newsletter.
Yeah,
I
that's
thought Hello
hilarious.
Sunshine was going to be a newsletter.
Yeah, it's a little more complicated than that.
Then we're going to make movies and television and then have a newsletter and like get affiliate fees or something.
Talk about some of the, anxious, painful, what got you through these moments of crisis, inevitable crisis, frankly.
I had a lot of anxiety. In 2018, I was making 3 television shows at once. And I don't know if people understand this, but each television show takes 6 months to make. So they were stacked on top of each other. I remember 2 weeks of
Which
my
shows
life.
were they?
I was on Morning Show, Big Little Lies, and Little Fires Everywhere. So in the morning, I'd go be dressed as Bradley Jackson, change my clothes, run to another soundstage.
You're
be
crazy.
Madeline Martha McKenzie and Big Little Lies, and then go to a night shoot with Kerry Washington on Little Fires Everywhere.
But mentally, that must be very difficult too, because you're
I
in
wanted
3
to-
characters a day. Yeah.
Lay down sideways and melt into the earth.
Right.
I just cried and cried and cried.
Right.
And I'd done it to myself.
Yes. Right. You had made you had made these decisions. Yeah. Right. Right.
I had no one to blame.
Yes.
But it all worked out,
Yeah.
and you can do really, really, really hard things.
Yeah. So you learned that I guess what you learned of is when you commit to something, what you're capable of.
That's right. And I love what you say about radical commitment, because that kind of, when you said it to me the first time, I was like, oh, that's me.
You know, Reese, I remember when we met and we had that bonding experience around the commitment. And I said to you, you know what, I'm thinking about doing this podcast. But I said, I don't think I have what it takes. And I may not at all. But I will say we were in the car and you said, watch this, Reza, start talking. And you filmed me. That was the start of this misadventure, just so you know. So you're responsible for it.
And I cold called on you.
You did cold call.
And I said, why do you want to start a podcast? Go.
Yes, correct.
And you did.
It was like reverse feedback on me. It was not very nice.
And you go, send it to me. Send it to me.
Exactly. So that's good. Okay, so let's talk about commitment, okay? Because to me, you embody commitment. And the reason the commitment is so important is because I think what you realized was I can't possibly achieve this outsized impact unless I dedicate myself fully to this. Okay, the outside impact being changing the way society looks at women. I mean, that's a ridiculous vision, right? It's like it's
delusional.
Well, it's an amazing vision, okay? But
I didn't think about eating the whole elephant.
Right.
I just thought about eating the toe.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I know you. You start with the toe and then, you know.
And then I was like,
that tastes pretty good.
I think I could do a little bit more.
Yes. Yes. What did you learn that you were capable of through committing?
First of all, I didn't go to business school, so I learned that I was able to merge onto the founder highway, not knowing a lot of fundamental jargon. I didn't know a lot of what the benchmarks should have been. Right. I didn't understand how to forecast. So I had really great partners in Sarah Hardin and Seth Rodsky helping me understand that part of it.
But I mean, even that, the judgment to decide who to partner with and the judgment to actually say, I need these skills and these are the right people to do it is a terrific thing. The other piece I say about commitment, I'm curious whether you'd agree with this, is yes, no question you learn what you're capable of when you commit to something. But the other thing that happens, I call it, it's sort of magic. Magic happens when you commit, which is suddenly, precisely because of your commitment, others commit to you. Right? You get your first customer, you get your first, precisely because they see what you're trading and they see the fear and the ambition in your eyes. Did you have moments like that?
Well, a thing I used to always say to my kids when they were little was when they were, you know, that horrible feeling when you're a parent of little toddlers and you're in a parking lot and there's just cars zooming past everywhere and you have to get to the front of the grocery store and you just say, come on, and they want to wander around and you know, and I used to always say to them, walk with purpose in the direction you're going.
Oh, interesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
And my kids will repeat it back to me all the time.
They've heard it once or twice. Yeah.
But walk with purpose in the direction you're going became this mantra when we started the business, because it was like, walk with purpose towards this mission-driven company and this idea, and people who are like-minded will start to walk with you. And they're leading then their teams. And it was always so clear what we were trying to walk towards. So I would say for founders out there, just be really clear. What are your goals? What is your intention? And I have to say, my team was really strong because of the impact piece of our mission. They felt like they were changing their industry. So and they did.
No, they sure did. I mean, they absolutely did. On the theme of commitment as a final thought, what are you, Reese Witherspoon, interested in committing to in the future?
I love that you're doing so much with young entrepreneurs.
Well, you've got to join me.
I know.
I mean, you're doing it as well.
Well, look, I can come and be here and give you so much support and tell my story anytime you want. Amazing. I think it's really important that we encourage young people to take big entrepreneurial leaps and also give them the support they need, the mental health support, the institutional knowledge support, the financial support, because there are going to be so many problems to solve in this new world order, and it is a mindset like you talk about. And it's not all win. But it's a really fun journey to be on.
It is a great journey. You know, and it's defined really by learning, right? Like really this journey is all about learning with the hope that through that learning you will have that impact that you want to have. I mean, you've done it so beautifully, right? So beautifully, in that you sort of imagined what this world could look like. And you're well on your way to pulling that together. For that, I'm very thankful. Thanks, Reese.
Thank you, Reza.
Oh.
Okay, great. Awesome. You did great.
I did great.
You did great.
You've been listening to The Founder Mindset with Reza Satchu.